Hey folks, this is Shandran here, and today we're going to be trying something new. I have a guest today, and it's going to be my very first guest. So welcome to Angry Ogre.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
A good mate of mine. We've played Magic a lot together over the years, and a lot of other stuff as well. We are going to be trying to recording a set review here, and I think we're just going to jump straight into it. So let's get to the gradings. We're going to start off with white as our color, and we're going to be going in order of mana cost. I think mana value is the correct term for it nowadays. We're going to start off with Bravekin Duo for 1 white mana. And it's a creature, it's a rabbit mouse. It's one of the duo cards. It's not some sort of amalgamation of a rabbit and a mouse. It's actually 2 little cute critters in the picture here. It's a 1/1 creature. It has the ability 1 tap. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And we can activate only as a sorcery. So, Mr. Angry Ogre, what do you think about this one?
I gotta be honest with you here, Shandon. I don't like this card particularly much. I think if it was in any other set, I would have this around a D or maybe even a D minus. Now, okay, it triggers Valiant, I know, but I think it's too expensive. I think 1 mana each time you want to give a creature +1/+1 is just too slow and too expensive, and then it really hurts me. It really hurts the card for me that it's sorcery speed. So I'm not high on this card.
Yeah, I don't really disagree that much. What would you give it if you consider it in like a Valiant deck?
Yeah, then if you're in sort of heavy Valiant deck territory, and if we're talking sort of the Valiant triggers that are sort of meaningful and that generates a lot of value for you each turn, then we could perhaps jump it up to a C minus or a C. But it's still, I would prefer other ways to trigger my Valiant creatures.
Okay, so I think I'm slightly higher than you in this one. I have it like at a D to D plus outside of Valiant. It could maybe go in a green-white deck or something if you're really desperate for 1-drops. And then I do like the repeatable ability to trigger my Valiant stuff, maybe a little more than you. So I think this goes up to C if you have the setup for it. But yeah, we're more or less in agreement with that one, I think. So let's just jump on to the next one, and we have Crumb and Get It as an instant cast, where you can gift a food. This is the first instance of the gift mechanic. In this case, it's the food. And what it does, it costs 1 white mana. And what it does is target creature you can control gets +2/+2 until end of turn. And if the gift was promised, that creature also gains indestructible until end of turn. And you're just gonna get to go first on this one as well, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, fine. I think this is a solid. This is a solid pump spell for me. It costs 1 mana. It's a nice place to be for a pump spell. You have the classical +2/+2 for 1 mana and white, and then you have the option of making something indestructible. And I don't think, unless you're playing an opponent who happens to be doing a whole lot of stuff with food, then I don't think necessarily the price is that steep. I can give people a food once in a while if it means saving my creature. So I'm in C territory here, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm completely in agreement. I think I prefer this as like a C in a Valiant deck, where I also like the targeting effect, and then C minus out of that. I don't think I want to be gifting a food that often, but especially not if you're playing against squirrels, as you say. But other than that, it's not really that bad.
It's a nice option, right?
It's absolutely a nice option. And let's say I play this and they're trying to blow me out. I don't know, just having the option to have the indestructible in there as well.
I completely agree, because honestly, most of the time you want your pump spell with +2/+2. You want that to be enough to save your creature, right?
Definitely. But getting the extra option, I think a huge segment of the internet is very down on the gift mechanic, but I'm not really in that category. I think most of them are really fine enough on their own, and then the gift thing is a nice added benefit.
It's one of those classic things with Magic cards, right? It's an optional ability. It can never make the card worse.
Yeah,
it always gives it more flexibility.
Totally agree. So C range is for decent combo trick?
Yes, right. I think so.
Flowerfoot Swordmaster is the next one we have here, and I'm just going to be going on introducing the cards for a little while at least. We have 1 white mana. Once again, it's a creature, it's a mouse soldier, it's a 1/2, and it has the offspring mechanic. So for 2 mana, you may pay an additional 2 as you cast the spell. If you do, Then when this creature enters, you create a 1/1 token copy of it. I'm not going to be reading the offspring on every card. You're gonna know what it means once we get to it. So 2 mana for that, and then it also has Valiant. So when this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability you control for the first time each turn, mice you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. I'm just gonna
Nice
let you keep
card.
going. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice card. I have this as a solid C+. I think it will be very rare that I ever play this for 1 mana. I would almost always prefer to play it as a 3-drop.
Mhm.
But I like it here. I like the Valiant ability too, in that both of your copies are pumped because they're both mice. Whenever you trigger the Valiant on one of them, and if you can get a nice mouse theme going on it as well, then it jumps up even a little bit from that. So it's a nice C+ for me.
Yeah. I think I'm a little higher off it because it works really well in both like green white and the Valiant decks. I think if you're going white, getting 2 copies where there's a couple of ways to trigger more than one creature, more than one Valiant creature at the same time, and being able to pump your entire team like this just seems like it could be a really good finishing move for like green white or something like that. I agree entirely that this is going to be cast at 3 mana for like 90% of cases or something to that effect. You might want to throw it in there as a 1 mana at a later turn to set up for your next, or if you can put one of them down and target it in the same turn to finish off a game or something like that. But otherwise, definitely.
And this is one of those classic things where you really have to resist the temptation. This is obviously almost always going to be it's often going to be in a white-red deck, right? And you expect it to be aggro, and you could say, okay, I just want to get my 1-drop out first to apply maximum pressure. But I think that would be a mistake. This you lose so much value, and a 1-drop has to be really something in order to be able to carry its own weight as a card.
Mm-hmm.
So almost always as a 3-drop, I'd say.
Yeah, and I mentioned before that I like this in a rabbit deck. Obviously, it doesn't actually work on rabbits. It's only mice you control, just to get that in there. And what I meant by that is if you have a lot of mice to go white with, it could be kind of fun like that. But I think you are correct that it fits better in the Valiant shell. And for that, I think I'm actually going to take it down just a notch to C+ like you had. I had it a little higher than that because I figured there was going to be a lot of mice token floating around, but I don't think that's a thing. Seasoned Warren Guard is our next one for 1 white. Whenever Seasoned Warren Guard attacks... Seasoned Warren Guard is our next one for 1 white. It's a creature, a Rabbit Warrior, a 1/2, and whenever Seasoned Warren Guard attacks while you control a token, Seasoned Warren Guard gets +2/+0 until end of turn. You just get to go first, I think.
Yeah, I think this is one of those cards where you just don't play a 1/2 for 1 mana in this day and age. So everything in this card is going to be up to how big a percentage of the time are you gonna have a token down when you begin to beat down. And I think that they're simply not enough. It's not reliable enough to get tokens out early enough for this to be a beater on turn 2. So actually, for that reason, I'm in D territory on this. I would almost never play this. Now, if I happen to draft a deck where I have a lot of tokens and a lot of token generators in the 2 and 3 slot, then obviously I might reconsider. But I don't see that happening very often, and for that reason, I'm actually gonna give this a D.
And I think this is the first situation where we really run into the difference between how we look at the grades, maybe. Because I don't think I would be drafting this that highly either. But if I know that I'm in a rabbit deck with a lot of tokens, I think I actually actively like this card. I have it at like D- as my base stat, but I think it goes all the way up to C+. Just getting a 3/2 out there as your first thing. I think the rabbit deck is going to play maybe like set up your board for a while and then go some alpha swings to end out the game. And I think this could work for that, just to have something actually impactful to do on turn 1. So, yeah.
I don't disagree with that completely. I mean, obviously, the moment that you have all the tools that you need to have in order for that card to potentially work, then of course the grade goes up. But you're having it as a role player in the alpha swing, I don't want to pay an entire card for that. Then you don't really use the power of the 1-drop, which is to get it down turn 1 and start swinging. So yeah, I don't know.
I think I'm hoping to curve this into something like the Flowerfoot Swordmaster, maybe. Not that, or any of the other token cards. There's also a couple of other random tokens floating around, like food. Not that I'm that willing to be playing that, but rabbits are green, white, and you could have like a 2-drop that brings in a food. There's one of those coming later in the green ones. So I think maybe with that in mind, but it's not that different. As you said, when you introduced it in the beginning, if you have like the correct deck for it with a lot of tokens, you might want to play it. I think I'm just a little more into seeing that happen. So I think rabbits are going to have tokens like most of the time.
Okay.
Yeah. So at this point, we're into our first creature with a subtype that's not like one of the usual one. And I think we're going to be seeing a trend with these once we get further into the whole thing. We're looking at the Brightblade Stoat. It's a creature, a weasel soldier. It's a 2/2 for 1 and a white, and it has first strike and lifelink.
I like this card. I like it a lot. This is a card that you're never ever gonna be unhappy about putting into your deck. It's doing exactly what you want an aggressive 2-drop to do, but even in a defensive deck, who's not gonna like a 2/2 first strike lifelink for 2? That's just pure good value. So I have this in a B- range.
Yeah, I think it goes up to that. I put it at C+, and then B- if you get stuff that works with it. Sort of like in a bad stack. Imagine playing this if you are lucky enough to get like 2 copies of it. And first strike and defense, this is first strike for real and not the first strike on your turn that we've been seeing for a while now. And first strike lifelink, trigger all your stuff, or even just pump this in mouse deck. I think it's going to be really good across the board. So I like the B- as like a general grade for it, because I think it fits in really a lot of decks, to be honest. Good. So we have Builder's Talent, which is an enchantment class for 1 and a white. When Builder's Talent enters, create an 0/4 white wall creature token with Defender. Then you can pay 1 at any time to level it up to level 2. When 1 or more non-creature, non-land permanents you control enter, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. And then 4 and a white for level 3. When this class becomes a level 3, return target non-creature, non-land permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is going to be an interesting one, I think. What do you feel about this one? Interesting one to talk about, I mean.
Okay, so this is a tricky card, because, okay, for 2 mana, you are always going to get at least an 0/4 wall, which is at least a somewhat usable creature in a defensive deck. Obviously, if that was all it did, you wouldn't play it. But I mean, hey, it's something. It can stop stuff if your deck is somewhat defensive. Then you have the level 2 ability, which I kind of like, which goes very well with the food mechanic, especially in that for just that 1 mana, you can get this repeatable source of +1/+1 counters. Obviously, if you don't have anything that triggers it, then that doesn't matter. But still, it's nice to have. And then we have this level 3 ability where you can return a non-creature, non-land permanent, which I see as a bit more fringe. I guess it also depends on how many cards of that nature that you have that can sort of jump into the graveyard on its own, right? That you can sacrifice. So if you have targets for that in your deck, then that last ability becomes better. But it's the level 1 and the level 2 that sort of carries the card most for me. So all that said, it's a bit of a weird card. I have it as a fairly solid C. But I'd be happy to hear your take on it too, Shannon.
Yeah, that's actually kind of interesting, because I think I have the floor of this as being just about an F. As you said, if it was only the first 0/4 for 2, no one would ever play that, really. So maybe D- technically more than an F, but close enough anyways. And I think you really need to like make sure your deck works with this. So maybe not building around it, but close enough. The 2 next cards we are going to be looking at are actually 2 cards I would like to try and play with this. And I think you could get this up to like the C+ range if you really build around it. If you get something, a couple of things that actually work with the level 3 ability, it might be okay down the line. But it's also exactly which deck are we playing it in? Maybe like a weird black-white deck with a couple of effects that works with this. I would really have liked to have some sagas or something in the deck to buy back with the last ability. Then I think it could have been actively sweet.
Definitely, yeah, that would have been great.
But it's hard to see exactly which non-creature and non-land permanents actually go to my graveyard like fairly often. Except maybe if I'm milling them myself. There are a couple of cards you might play in like a green-white deck that does that. But it's narrow. So I think this ranges all the way from like a D- to a C+ depending on your deck. But I do think it can get actually actively good if you have a weird deck that plays around. I just think it's going to be really rare.
Yeah, I completely agree. Except perhaps adding one thing, and that is, I think it's not a build around in the sense that I would go out of my way to build anything around it. I think I would draft this card sort of as a wait and see, and see if I ended up with the tools that made it possible. But I would need some stronger cards to sort of pull me in the directions of those mechanics. This one I would simply slot in if my deck happened to come together in a way that made the level 2 ability playable.
Yeah. I think some of the reviewers out there tend to differentiate between build-arounds and synergy cards, where it's quite clear that this is probably not something you want to first pick and try and build around, because it's not strong enough for that. But yeah, I do think it's interesting. I've heard some very, very varying takes on this card, from all the way to straight up unplayable, basically, in any case, to people who kind of like it and want to build around it. So it's going to be fun to see how that works out, I think. And let's get on to the next one with that. So Carrot Cake is for 1 and a white, an artifact/food. This is a food. When Carrot Cake enters and when you sacrifice it, create a 1/1 white rabbit creature token and scry 1. Then you can pay 2 and tap this to sacrifice Carrot Cake and gain 3 life. And importantly, you can also just forage this for the forage mechanic. It is a food.
Yeah. And then we can see that little red bird from the earlier card, that it really likes Carrot Cake, right? Because this one,
definitely.
It triggers all of its abilities, right?
Yeah.
It's an artifact that triggers the level 2 ability when it enters. You can sacrifice it and get it back, and then you can play it again and trigger the level 2 ability once more, right? So in that sense, they really go well together. That said, I'm actually not that big of a fan of this card. I think, okay, so you're paying 4 mana to get 2 1/1s. I think for 4 mana, I would like to get at least 3 1/1s. Okay, I get two scry 1s, but still, is that really good enough? Did I misunderstand the card now?
No, I don't think you misunderstood the card. I just think that you might be overlooking the fact that you can sacrifice this without paying the 2 mana and actually benefit from it for any of the forage cards out there in the set.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That if you can, because it counts as a food, right?
Specifically, yeah.
Yeah, and that may be more valuable, and you still get your 2 rabbits out of the deal, nevertheless. But still, I see it as a role player in some decks, but it's just the power level is a bit on the low side before you really get your synergies up and go.
Yeah, what were you grading this approximately?
I'm actually sort of on a D+ C- kind of thing.
Yeah. Then I'm kind of higher than you on this deck. On this card, I think I actually like this, as if my deck has access to foraging. I think I'd actively be seeking this out at like a C+ level, maybe even.
Wow.
Because getting the food from this and just making. So I look at this kind of like a card that makes 2 food and 1 food and 2 rabbits, and gets me to scry 1 for 2 mana. Scry 2 even, scry 1 twice, I guess is the correct term. So that's how I'm looking at it, rather than as a 4 mana make 2, because that, I agree totally, would be very weak. So for me, this reads like 1 and a white, make 2 white rabbits, scry 1 twice, and activate 1 of your foraging cards. And that, I think, adds up to like a C+.
Okay, I can see that. But then again, we just have to factor in that the value of a 1/1 differs somewhat over the game, right? So uh, normally you would like to have your 1/1s early in the game, and so that value would be lower if you sort of have to sit and wait around for you to find your forage ability.
Yeah.
But fair enough, if you can consistently make sure to have that forage ability online on, let's say, turn 3 or 4, then I can see a C or maybe even a C plus, as you say.
Yeah. I think I have it as a C general, just because it seems like an all-round decent value card. Obviously, it's not going to be great if you don't have any way to forage this away, but it's still going to be okay-ish. It could work with some bad synergies for the life gain, as any food can. That's not what I want to be doing, but it might. And then I think one thing that we are going to be maybe differing about, it seems, I think the green-white deck is going to be actively wanting 1/1s all the way to the, not late game, but mid-range, because I just think they want to go really, really wide. And then I don't care if this is only getting triggered at let's say turn 5 or 6, because then I can alpha swing the next turn and have my extra 1/1 for that. But yeah, it's a fun card at least, and
it's a fun card. It's always funny when it's not just glaringly obvious whether a card is good or not.
Exactly. And then I love the art.
Yeah, it's nice.
I absolutely adore it, because the art cake just looks horrible, and look at all the rabbits in the background, just really, really aggressively wanting to get it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And from one thing that's awesome into another thing that I think is going to be awesome, the Feather of Flight. 1 and a white for an enchantment aura. This has flash, enchant creature. When Feather of Flight enters, draw a card. Enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and has flying. Where are you putting this?
It's a good card. It's a good card. I mean, obviously, cards that replace themselves need to be seen in that light, right? +1/+0 and flying is making a. I mean, take this in a green-white deck, for instance.
Yeah.
It's making one of your big green beaters into a very dangerous flying threat, and you didn't even spend a card on it. And you even have. I would be a little bit more careful with the flash ability. I'm always sort of a bit hesitant to do too much ambushing without having the mana available to actually save my poor ambush creature if my opponent uses a trick. But nevertheless, it doesn't change the fact that it having flash is also a good thing. It's making it even more flexible than it already is. It's a good card. I think I would play it in at least a copy or two in almost every deck. I have it around a C.
Yeah.
Maybe even a C plus.
Yeah, I have it at C plus as well as my base grade, but I think this can go up to a B. I think this is going to be just straight up awesome. It triggers Valiant, and it can, like, in the bird stack, there's a lot of birds that puts counters on the ground beaters. And giving one of those ground beaters that have been beefed up a bit flying as well seems like it could be an awesome thing to do. And exactly as you say, this doesn't cost you a card. I wouldn't play it without the draw a card, obviously. But I might be close to wanting that effect in my deck. I have in recent sets played the like +2/+2 and flying trick as just give my creature a flying counter on it, just like in various situations in games. And this is better than that. And then when you factor in that this actively replaces itself, I think this is really great, honestly. There's going to be like a white card, there's a mousetrap later that taps things when you target it, but a lot of these Valiant effects, being able to trigger them at the end of your opponent's turn. And then
that's a good point, actually. That there you could really get also a bit of a safer use out of the flash. If you use the flash ability specifically to trigger Valiant at end of turn, I can get behind that.
Yeah.
I just, perhaps one thing though also, and don't get me wrong, I agree with you. This is a nice card. There is the risk of it. You may want to consider whether you want to play this against a black opponent with open mana, for instance.
Yeah, or a blue one.
Gonna
Yeah, definitely.
It's gonna be ugly if they throw an instant speed removal spell in response, right?
Definitely. And that has always been, that's why I say, I think you know this about me from having played with me before, but I really like these enchantment style effects, auras, and I have a tendency to rate them maybe a tad too high. So that's also why it's great that you're here to temper my expectations on this kind of play, because I live in a maybe not a magical Christmas land as such, but on these kind of effects, yeah, I can definitely see myself overrating this
Yeah,
a bit.
probably a bit more of a pessimist, right?
Yeah,
At the end of the day, you want a reliable effect from your magic card. You don't
definitely.
want this fancy mumbo jumbo where you don't know what you get. But I think at the end of the day, we pretty much agree it's a great card.
It's a great
As long
card.
as
Yeah.
you be careful out there, people don't play into the opponent's removal, and then you'll be fine.
People play bounce and unsummons for exactly this kind of effect, right?
Yeah.
So we have the next card is Jolly Diablos, which is an awesome name, for a 1 and a white creature hamster citizen. It's a 2/3, and it has the text: whenever you give a gift, draw a card. That's a
Well,
fun one.
it's great. I love it. A hamster citizen. How adorable is that? But no, this is a great card. I mean, um, it's a 2/3 for 2. What's not to like? That's already pretty beefy stats. I would consider playing a 2/3 for 2, even without the ability. And you're in white. You're going to give a gift at some point in the game, so the odds are you're probably gonna draw one card off that card per game if it gets to stick around. So for that reason, I'm pretty high on this card. I think it's a B minus for me.
Yeah. Love to hear it, because I really like this card. I have it like a C plus in just a general thing, and then I think you can, if you actually start like brewing around this, just taking the effect into consideration when you draft, so you get a few more gift cards. And I think this can go up to B. I just really love the effect. This is basically 2 mana 2/3 that draws you a card like a lot of the time, right? That is pretty awesome. So yeah, I'm totally in agreement, I think, here. And
Yeah, yeah, because I mean the days of the 2/2 bear being playable for 2 is obviously over, but a 2/3 is significantly stronger than a 2/2. So it's a great flaw to have. That if everything goes wrong, it's still a 2/3 for 2. That's fine.
yeah, I think I might. I've been throwing 2/3s for 2 into my decks for a while. Like, pretty happy about it. Not excited, but when you have the option of drawing one or even like many cards, oh yes, please. And if they need to spend their removal spell on my 2/2 drop, awesome.
That's fine. Let them.
Yeah. So great.
Yep.
Live Creed Duo. And this is another 1 in the white for a 1/2 flyer. The creature is a bat bird. Once again, it's not a weird amalgamation, it's just one of the duo cards. Whenever another creature you control enters, you gain 1 life.
You're sort of waiting for the day that they print a Batman, right?
Yeah. It's like hybrid.
But this is not worthy of being a Batman, I would say. I mean,
no.
it's it's obviously in the life gain deck. This is going to be fine. It's gonna be a repeatable trigger of life game ability, and you're gonna play it every time in a life game deck. Outside of a life game deck, I don't like this at all. I think it's a 1/2 for 2, even with flight, is just too small stats wise. So I would give this maybe a D outside the live game deck, and maybe something around a C plus in the live game deck.
So in the live game deck, we're just completely in agreement. I think this might be a C plus in that one. Triggering gain 1 life there. But it's close. C to C plus sounds good. I do think this could go into a green-white deck if you are like low on it, or maybe even a blue-white one, because it has flying and it can trigger a lot of the blue-white stuff. But even there, it like at most a D plus, I think. So I think I just agree with your rating on that one. The next one we have is Maple's Metal For 1 and a white, it's an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Up to 1 other target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So now we're talking.
Now we're talking. This is going to be a horrible trick to run into. I mean, this can really lead to blowouts. This is a card that you really have to remember is in the set, because otherwise you can get blown out in a horrible fashion. That also said, it's a card that it's a trick that I really like to play. I mean, it's very rare that it's a lot of stat points spread out over 2 creatures for 2 mana. I think this is really efficient. So for that reason, I'm actually I'm in I could even be in B- territory here because it's so efficient. But I may be I'm C+, B-. It's as about as good as a trick can get, I would say.
So I did.
And also Valiant. Well,
yeah, Valiant, yeah, definitely. That's what's in there. I thought we were gonna be more in disagreement. Maybe that's coming later with some of the later cards. But so far we've been pretty online with most of the stuff. I have this as C+/B-, where C+ is just like any general deck with a lot of creatures, and then up to B- level in a Valiant deck. Triggering 2 Valiant creatures, probably winning 2 combats, to be honest, when you can use this. It can also be played with only 1 creature on the board. Some of these effects don't have the up to 1 on the other one, making them weird like that, but this doesn't have that issue. Only 2 mana. Yeah, I think you're spot on. This is going to be a horrible card to run into. So
yeah, and this is one of those cards where I would say I would consider playing it even for 3. And I mean, the difference between 2 and 3 mana on a trick is huge. So that just says something about how good it is.
Yeah, it looks quite awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't looks quite awesome maybe, but yeah, not the art as per se. Nettleguard is the next one. We have 1 and a white for a 3/1 creature mouse soldier. It has Valiant. Whenever Nettleguard becomes the target of a spell or ability you control for the first time each turn, blah, 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 it gets +0/+2 until end of turn. So not as awesome as some of the others, but hey. And then it also has, very importantly, pay 1, sacrifice Nettleguard, destroy target artifact or enchantment.
So this is a bit of a weird card. I mean, it's a lot of abilities that don't really synergize that well, or it's 2 abilities that don't synergize at all with each other. But hey, it's nice to have. It's nice to have a destroy target enchantment or artifact thrown in there on a creature that's actually fairly solid. I mean, a 3/1 for 2 is probably not that great anymore, but the Valiant ability, the 3/1 for 2 is close enough to being playable that I think the Valiant ability pushes it over the edge and into playable territory. And then on top of that, you get that nice little disenchant effect in there as well that can just be really great once your bomb has been hit by enchantment removal.
Yeah,
or
banishing
like
light,
that, right?
yeah. By
Something
banishing
like that,
light.
right?
Or like one of the talents from the opposing
Oh yeah, and some
player.
of those are really, really darn good, right?
Yeah.
So I like this card for the flexibility. It's never gonna be great, except for when you really blow out an enchantment or artifact. But no, the flexibility is just is really nice. So I have this in the C+ territory.
I have it exactly at a C+, and this time I do not have any needs to go in the Valiant deck, needs to do anything. This is just a C+ across the board. I'm always playing this. I think they've been really good, over the last many years at this point, but putting in accidental artifact, enchantment, destruction onto creatures and such like that. I really like that on my creature because it doesn't take up a slot in my deck, right? It's awesome.
Yeah, and then now in terms of set design, we can decide: do we want accidental disenchant effects? Maybe we do. Maybe that's the only way to get it in there. I mean, I perhaps I'm not quite sure where the flavor is. Why is it that this little guy is particularly good at destroying artifacts or enchantments?
Yeah, no clue.
In that sense, also the accidental ability, I agree a little too much perhaps with you on that one in a way where I maybe don't love the card design that much, but that's more of a flavor issue really. In terms of game mechanics, I think I agree with you. It's you can't play disenchant effects in limited this day and age. So it's nice to get it in there on sort of a rider ability, as is the case here, right?
Most people are playing like if you take like across the board, most people are probably playing best on one on arena nowadays, and having destroy target artifact enchantment on something that's not a sideboard card per se is, I think, a valuable thing to do. But other than that, yeah, the design flavor-wise is a little weird. I don't know why it's a nettle card. I don't know a lot of this stuff, but hey, it mechanically it's really solid.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Parting Gust. I had a hard time grading this one. Because it does a lot of weird stuff.
The whole gift of tapped fish. I kind of like it. It's sort of weird. I don't know who got that idea.
I think. Yeah.
Is it a mafia thing? What are we going at here?
I imagine it, the gift of tapped fish, as like a bear coming to you with like a stunned fish in its mouth and placing it at your feet. That's just how I kind of like it. Then the fish wakes up and protects you for whatever reason. That's a bit weird, but hey, we are living in a world of living animals. Let me actually read the card. I'm sorry for the listeners. Parting Gust for white. It's gift a tapped fish, and then you can exile target non-token creature. If the gift wasn't promised, return that creature to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it at the beginning of the next end step. So this is like a dual card. Either you bounce probably your own stuff, and then you return it with a +1/+1 counter on it at the end of the next end step, or you actively exile, use this as a removal spell, and then just give them a tapped fish instead. It reads a bit weird, but
it is a bit weird. I think it's in a lot of cases with the gift cards. I would be happy to play it without gifting anyone anything most of the time, but this is a bit reversed. I think 90% of the time, or 80% of the time at least, I would gift someone a fish with this card, because it's a removal spell. It's instant speed exile removal for 2 mana. That's pretty good. I mean, giving them a 1/1 it is not nothing. So that does draw it down significantly. I think if it wasn't for that gift of fish shenanigans there, I would have this as maybe a B+ even. As it is now, I think I have it as a C+.
Yeah. I said I had a really hard time about pricing this correctly. It's kind of weird because it does save your own creatures against removal. That's kind of nice. So that it has like the dual option of that. Usually I'm very down on the give your opponent a 2/2 or give your opponent a 1/1 flyer, destroy that thing, all these effects that we've seen. But a 1/1 on the ground might just not be as bad of a problem. I think I like this especially in blue-white, maybe, because I might not care. My defenses on the ground can definitely handle a 1/1, is what I'm thinking. And I will be attacking the air, so it doesn't matter. There's also a higher reason, higher chance that they want to go after my flyers with removal spells. If I have a lot of instants, this goes up a little bit. But just throwing a grade on it, I think it can go up to C+ if you have a lot of things that go. And then I think in an aggro play pattern, in an aggro deck, this could fall into a play pattern where you attack the enemy. And then specifically green-white, I'm thinking here, once you get to your alpha swings, you just attack all of your stuff into the enemy, and then the worst block for you, you bounce that creature and have it for the next alpha swing next turn as well. I could see that happening. I definitely don't want to go higher than C+.
No, definitely not either. I mean, I think many people may. I agree with everything you said about a tapped blue fish being somewhat easier to manage than a 1/1 spirit or whatnot. But still, giving your opponent free creatures is never great, right? So I think also that costs a lot. So C plus max, I can get behind that. And you don't really, I can see saving your own creature from removal is one thing. I would feel pretty good about that. What you mentioned there, I can see you got to do what you got to do, and it's nice to have the option to save your creature from your alpha swing there, but it's not a super efficient card.
No, it's really not. And also the casting cost is, as you mentioned, I think
rough,
it's
right?
pretty horrible, to be honest.
Yeah.
If you want to be holding
especially
this
for
up,
instant, right?
if you want to be holding this up on the opponent's turn, yeah, it's gonna be pretty bad. Unless you have a target in mind for exiling and giving them a fish, I think. So I think I have this at a C ish, and then C plus if you have all the stuff going for it.
Makes sense. I could get behind that.
Yeah. Repel Calamity is the next one.
Yes.
Kind of like the same though. It's 1 and a white. This instant destroy target creature with power or toughness 4 or greater.
Yeah, wow. This is really, for those of us who have been playing Magic for a while. This is the very definition of power creep, right?
Yeah.
Usually
definitely.
it used to be 4 mana, and it had to be 4 power or greater, right? And now it's 2 mana, and you can even do it. It can be power or toughness. This is a great card. This is, for me, it's close to, but not quite, premium removal. I have it as a B minus, just because of how efficient it is in terms of how much mana you spend. Now, there will be moments against a red-white or a white-green aggressive deck where you may find yourself without targets, and that will feel horrible to have your good removal spell blanked in that manner. But that will not be often, especially not with tricks going around. At some point, the opponent will have something that has either 4 power or 4 toughness, I think, and then you'll be able to use this and feel pretty great about it. So I'm gonna go with a B minus.
I'm a lot lower on this than you.
Really? Wow.
I've tried to look over the set, and creatures are just in general very small. Like their baseline is very small in this set compared to others. I think this hits without any pumps or something like that. Like maybe it's rough to throw out percentages, but in the ballpark of 20% of stuff.
But it's the 20% you want to hit, though.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be hitting the best ones, and the cost is really effective for what it does. It's funny because you mentioned, I think it's called, I don't know, Smite the Monstrous or whatever, the one you were talking about. I had it remembered as being 2 and a white for that one, but I think you're correct. It was actually 4 mana and not 3. So I think that messes a bit with my recollection of the past. This is 2, so the other one couldn't have been 4. No, that's insane.
And I played that card.
Yeah. Not like happy about it too much, but yeah, we played that one. I think this is really effectively cast, as you said. I am scared that it's gonna be stuck in my hand a bit too often, maybe. And if I have rummaging or looting in my deck, I think I'm gonna be a lot more likely to play this. But I had it at like a C level, to be honest. Maybe going up to C plus.
Did you factor in the number of times you're gonna blow someone out who used the trick? I mean, the creatures are small, but you need to pump them once in a while.
Yeah, and Valiant specifically is gonna be growing rather large whenever they get targeted by stuff. There's a lot of weird effects there when they pump them a little bit. Also because this hits both toughness. I could see a C plus, but I think this is gonna be when you cast this is gonna feel awesome. I just think that maybe we might be overlooking a bit too many of the times where it's just gonna get stuck in your hand because you're playing someone who it doesn't work against, and you just have 1 fewer cards.
Yeah. Perhaps. Like, I just don't see it happening that often. I mean,
lizards,
I can see it
bats,
happening.
Rabbits.
Yeah, no. But I mean, even people running those small cards, they're gonna have a 4-drop that creeps up to 4 power or toughness.
That is true. That's true. I think I'm sticking a bit to my guns and going a little lower than you in this one, but it's not that much. The next one, on the other hand,
I'll just to happily pick up all of them then.
Just beat me with it. Definitely. Sonar Strike. 1 on the white again. Instant. Sonar Strike deals 4 damage to target attacking, blocking, or tapped creature. You gain 3 life if you control a bat. Power creep again, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's a good card. Now we're probably gonna disagree on this one, I can imagine, because I could imagine that you probably like this more than the previous one.
Yeah.
This one I actually have a bit lower. This is a C plus for me, simply because it's not gonna kill a bomb, and it's if you are a small aggro deck, you can't really prevent them from blocking. And in an aggro deck, you don't really care about the 3 life. But of course, in a defensive deck, I could see it perhaps being a bit higher. But no, I'm gonna go with C plus on it.
I don't think I'm that much higher then. I have this as this could be down to C outside of cards where it really works. But if you are a little controlly maybe, or let's see where I have the actual card out here. If you have bad synergies, if you like the life stuff like that, this could be. I think I have this as C plus in the decks that I'm probably going to be playing it in, and then up to B minus if you really have it running on all cylinders. 4 damage is going to be killing a lot of the stuff that's going on. If you can't really do it if they pump pre-combat, but that's pretty rare. So if they are running their mice towards you, and then they're going to be targeting something with a buff spell, then I want to be using this to kill it before the effect takes in, instead of using the other one to kill them after. I know it's the same effect, but this also hits them the next turn after they've... because the creatures will still be tagged. I just think it really has a lot going for it on these little small things, but like on the grading scale, I don't think we're that off, it seems like, if you give this C plus as well. I just think you were higher on the other one, to be honest.
Yeah, probably.
Warren Elder is our next one, and we are still in the 2-drop territory for 1 on the white. Creature, Rabbit Cleric, a 2/2, and it has the ability 3 and a white. For creatures you control, get +1/+1 until end of turn.
Well, this is what I want from my 2-drops, right? It's a 2/2. It's not embarrassing. You could almost run it as a 2/2 for 2, and then you have that ability to pay 4 mana later in the game, even 8 if you end up with a board stall.
Let's hope we don't get that, but yeah.
To pump your team. It's one of those tag along effects that I really like on my 2-drops. It's gonna serve its purpose in the early game as a 2/2. And then if it happens to stick around, you don't have to necessarily protect it with all your might. Then you're going to be happy about the effect at some point when you begin to start running out of the cards. So this is a great card. I think I would probably have it around a C plus, something like that.
Am I the only one who feels like this would usually cost 5 mana, the ability to pump it?
That's true. It usually does, yeah, and it usually comes up with a worse body, right? I mean, isn't it usually a 1/1 for and then 1/1 for 1 and then a 5? Because then this is a huge upgrade, right?
Yeah, definitely. I also like the effect of turn 6 is not. I do see my rabbit decks as often going to turn 6 at least, and being able to cast a trick and activate this in the same turn. Like when I want to be swinging in with something, seems kind of awesome. Plus the threat of activation is online earlier. There's a lot of good stuff going for this. I have it at once again at the ceiling on this one. I think is a B minus if it's running on all clocks, but C plus.
I actually agree with you on that. I mean, if in a very go wide deck, this obviously becomes better.
Yeah, I think the rabbit deck is gonna be very go wide. At least the good versions of the rabbit deck.
This is great in a rabbit deck. I agree.
Yeah. And
also
now...
because the rabbit deck actually doesn't have all that much in terms of group pump, in terms of what you could wish for.
Yeah, there's not a lot of effects that really do. That's like we had the mice one before that didn't pump the rabbits. And then there's gonna be a one we're gonna get to a little while later. But this is a solid version of that.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah. Next card, Banishing Light at common. Noticeably, it's 2 and a white for an enchantment. When Banishing Light enters, I hate that they changed that. Sorry, I'm gonna read this again. When Banishing Light enters, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Banishing Light leaves the battlefield.
Banishing Light is a classic. We've seen it many times before. It's always great. It's premium removal for white. It gets the job done. Sure, it's not instant speed, but it's 3 mana and you can remove anything. I have it as a B plus.
Yeah, I think I put it at a B minus for not being instant.
That little.
Yeah, that's not little in my book, but that's more about how exactly you go with the grading scale. It's really good. I'm gonna agree entirely with that, and it's better than the other 2 removal spells we were looking at before: Sonar Strike and Repel Calamity.
We agree there.
But I do think the accidental enchantment removal, there's some in green, there's some in red. Maybe that's not some in red. I might be misremembering. But around the place does leave this a little vulnerable. But hey, playing this with the Builder's Talent before, and they blow it out, and you get it back, and I don't know, all sorts of good stuff can happen. Yeah, B minus, I think, is gonna be my take on this one. It's a good one. It's a good one. I just don't think it's like almost bomb level.
No. Yeah.
Give me it for 2, and I'll say B minus. The next one we have is the Dewdrop Cure. I've heard a lot of varying takes on this one. 2 and a white for a sorcery. Gift a card. Return up to 2 target creature cards, each with mana value 2 or less, from your graveyard to the battlefield. If the gift was promised, instead return up to 3 target creature cards, each with mana value 2 or less, from your graveyard to the battlefield. What do you think about this?
I'm sorry, Shandon. This just feels like a constructed card to me.
Okay.
This, I really don't like this card. I think the setup cost is too much. You're gonna talk about a card that you will at times have in your hand rotting away without being able to do anything with it, and then finally on turn 7 you can get 1 or 2 creatures back when you don't need them. No, I don't like this. I can see it being. I actually have this as a straight up F. I can see
F. Okay.
Yeah, I can see in a very low curve white deck where you really have a ton of creatures or a way to mill a lot of cards into a graveyard or something like that. I can see this being better, but I just don't. The payout for the floor is basically not there, and the ceiling is not high enough. So I could see it being all the way up to a C in the right deck, but without accidentally slotting into the perfect deck for it, because I don't think you should build around this card. Without accidentally finding the perfect home in your deck, I don't see this as a very playable card.
And there you go. You just went and ruined it with the. I can see it getting all the way up to a C, because that's where I have it at for the perfect deck for it. So I just thought that we were finally gonna really disagree about something. No, I agree. It's not gonna be like a premium card. I wouldn't take this highly or anything like that. I had it at like a D in general, but up to a C in like a critter aggro high creature count deck. Just drop down your creatures, swing them towards the opponent. They're gonna have to block and trade if you are really aggressive. So I don't think that it's unlikely to make this your turn 5 play into maybe another creature you just drew. Just have a lot of low creature count, low mana value creatures in your deck, and this could be fine. I think it's gonna be rare that you're gonna gift them a card. I must admit that. Not because I wouldn't like to gift them a card if I could get up my third. I just think having the third one there is gonna be a little problematic. If you're playing, maybe there's some green squirrels around, and there's some green graveyard synergy stuff that puts stuff into your graveyard on an actually decent card. So if you have a deck set up in that sort of position where you're putting stuff into your graveyard as well, it could be decent as well. I think C is the ceiling, though.
Yeah, but it's really a ceiling, though. I mean, here I think this the pessimist versus the Christmas land here really plays in, because I can see scenarios where this card is good, but I can also see so many everyday scenarios where you just sit around with a dead card in hand.
But like, it's you're gonna get to cast 2 cards, and at a discounted mana value of 1. Right? You're putting 2 2-drops into play, 2 actual 2-drops that they cared about enough to kill them. That's in my land how it's going, at least. But I do agree. It could be.
Unless the only reason you managed to get them into the yard was because you just were so aggressive that you just pummeled your 2-drops into creatures that survived when they blocked them, right?
Oh, that seems silly, right? I'm gonna be trading with my 2-drops. Hopefully, I'm gonna be keeping them around. But if I'm playing a deck like this, I could be okay trading them a little more aggressively.
I wouldn't play it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I've seen it get an actual F out there in the interwebs. People who really don't like this when it got out. Not an actual F, but people who really never would play this. And I thought you were in that camp as well, so I could.
And I think I am. I mostly am. I can see that when you pack 3 midway through and you get that as a 10th pick and you realize, wow, my deck is perfect for it. Then fine, then maybe it's not an F. But I mean, barring that, I think you should almost never take this card.
It's like a.
It's a trap.
No, it's not a trap. It's fine. It's fine. I won't say it's great. It's fine. The next one we have is the Harvest Strike. Okay, let's say that correctly. The Harvest Right Host. It's a creature, a rabbit citizen, at a 3/3. Whenever Harvest Right Host or another rabbit you control enters, target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Then draw a card if this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn.
Wow.
Where do you go on this one?
This is a respectable citizen for sure. That's the first thing I just thought about. This is that's an awful lot of text. That's all positive on a 3/3
for 3. Yeah.
Yes, I love this card. It's wonderful. I have a weakness for 3/3 for 3. I know they're not what they used to be, but they're almost always solid. And the abilities that it has on top of being a solid creature are quite significant. It triggers on its own when you put it down. It can even trigger Valiant in sort of a chain reaction kind of thing, and then it can have other rabbits trigger multiple times. Just woe and behold when we combine it with the next card on this list. And then, by the way, if you manage to get it all to work, you may even be able to draw a card too. I mean, this is a great card. I have this as a B.
Yeah. Let's see where I'm at. That's my ceiling as well, as a B. I do believe that if you aren't playing Valiant or you're not playing like Rabbit Go White tokeny stuff, this is not gonna be obviously that great. I think the floor of this is like around at a C level, C plus maybe even, and that is pretty decent for a card that can go really ham. There are kind of we looked through some at this point, but there's also coming more, and then there's the Offspring mechanic where you're also making 2 creatures at a turn at a time. So I think there's a lot of ways to just trigger this off a single card, and I think that part about it, like as you say, the next one we're gonna get into, hop to it in a second here. But any one of the ones with the Offspring is just gonna trigger this by themselves and draw a second card. That's just stupid. So yeah, B definitely, and I think if your deck is really swinging, you might get it up to a B plus. But
I agree. I mean, the B is my
talking myself up here.
I could definitely see this being even better than a B in the right deck, because if you can just imagine playing in arena and seeing all those freaking triggers springing up all of a sudden because you offspring something, and then you got a card and you got 2+1/0 triggers, and then you use those to get 2 Valiant triggers, and then it all just spins out of control.
Imagine this with like the Flowerfoot Swordmaster and a bunch of mice in play.
Ow.
Or whatever the other one was.
Brutal.
Oh, we haven't gotten to that one yet. But yeah, just buffing everything, Valiant triggering.
I'm actually sort of beginning to talking myself up from a B towards B plus territory.
Yeah. It's a good card. I think it's going to be really great.
Yeah.
So, Hop to It is the next one, and I do believe you like this one as well. 2 and a white, sorcery, create 3 1/1 white rabbit creature tokens for 3 mana.
Yeah, what's not to like? I mean, there was a day and age when you couldn't get 3 1/1s for this used to cost 4 mana. But now it apparently only costs 3, and even with a tribal name to it, you get 3 manas, 3 1/1 rabbits for 3. That's a darn good value. Combine it with the earlier card, I mean, then you're almost with just a 2-card combo in Magical Christmas Land, and even the floor on this, it does exactly what your white decks want to be doing anyway. It's throwing a lot of bodies onto the floor. So I actually have this as a B plus.
Yeah, that's too high. The only thing I don't like about it is that everyone else is going to be taking it away from my rabbit decks. So because you're just playing this and everything, to be honest. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't care if I'm bats or I don't know, birds or whatever.
If I have the earlier card and it triggers that as well, then we can actually talk about this being even better. But you have to really have rabbit synergies for it to jump higher. But I think you're right that the problem with this card is simply that everybody is gonna want it.
Yeah,
it's gonna be at least solid for everyone.
Yeah, I have it at B minus just in general, and then B plus for the rabbit deck. So it looks really good.
Yeah.
Intrepid Rabbit, funny name. Also looks really good, I'd say.
Yeah.
It's 2 and a white for creature Rabbit Soldier. It's a 3/2 and it has Offspring for 1.
Yeah.
And then it has the text: when this creature enters, target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn.
Yeah, it's as you said, it's a great card. It's a 4-drop, basically. I don't see myself playing this for 3 ever.
Oh, if you're winning that turn, but that's it.
Yes, if you have to, you do it, right? If you can win in this turn, or if you have to do it or die, then of course you do it. But I mean, 90%, 95% of the time, this is a 4-drop, and a great 4-drop. 2 bodies, you trigger Valiant twice, you get to attack with some beefed up creatures. It's everything white wants to do. I think I have it around a somewhere between a C plus and a B minus.
I think I have it higher on the on like the ceiling of it, but C plus that's like the floor of it. I don't see this being bad in anything. I see this being actively good in any deck that wants to play it. No, any deck that can play it is what I meant to say. And then it gives you an extra body. It might trigger the Harvest Rite Host, right? It helps you go wide. It helps you trigger your Valiant stuff. It just looks really great. Might be going out. This could be one of the better commons in the set, I think. B to maybe even B plus level. Is that too insane?
I think that's too insane.
Okay.
I think it is. I also have a hard time seeing myself taking this over Banishing Lights, for instance.
Yeah. I think I could do that, to be honest. But yeah, I do get what you're putting down. More realistically, in the deck where it really fits, I think I want the Harvest Rite Host over it. So maybe that's a better. I think I do think this is going to be a B though. I do think the double triggering of the Offspring and putting 2 bodies in there is going to be pretty darn powerful. So maybe like I don't know if this is better in red white or red or white green.
Both are gonna want it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Just play it both places.
But sure, I'll get it down a bit down from my B plus. That seems fine. I just really like this as a good comment.
It's great. I can see a C plus being perhaps a little low, but I mean, there's also this. I have this fear of getting too many 4-drops, which is always a problem that greedy people like me can have at a draft, right?
I think that's one of the few things where we are very alike. It's because the good thing about this one though is that it doesn't have to be a 4-drop. It
always has to be a 4-drop.
Oh, it really does not.
You're not gonna play this for 3 just to fill out your curve. You're gonna play it for 3 to win the game or to save your ass, right?
I think I might play this for 3 if I'm stuck at 3 mana and don't have anything to do and a lot of things like that. Just having the option. Once again, as you said earlier yourself, it's an option and it can never be bad, right? It's gonna
Of
And I
course.
think in this case it makes it actively better, specifically because the 4-drop issue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just gonna feel so bad, right?
then it'll feel bad and you might win. But
Yes, of course. This is I can see this as the perfect card where I'm going to play it as a 4-drop more often than I should.
yeah, and I'll play
So
my
I think
aura.
there's a good lesson in this, that it will actively hurt you to play this as a 3-drop, but you have to man up. Maybe it was wrong what I said, 95%. Maybe you just have to teach yourself that this is an 85% 4-drop, right? And then really force yourself into playing it as a 3-drop once in a while.
Yeah. It's value that you're letting go of, but I think you have to do that with a lot of the offspring cards. This is an annoying one to do it with because offspring is only one, and it's easier on some of the other ones, but yeah. So the next card is the Mouse Trapper. I think I alluded to this one earlier. 2 and a white for a creature, Mouse Soldier. A 3/2 with Flash and Valiant. And the Valiant ability is whenever Mouse Trapper becomes the target of spell, blah, 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 tap target creature and opponent controls. Yeah.
It's a solid card. I mean, it works well with the flash mechanic. You play it at the end of. You can play it either before your opponent attacks, if you need to hold back an attacker, or at the end of turn to tap that blocker, so you have a chance to get in with something
You have
else.
to
And even
target it
itself.
first, though. It doesn't
Oh,
trigger
sorry.
upon
Okay.
entering. Yeah.
I completely misread it. Okay, then it becomes significantly worse actually. But it's still an okay card. I have it as, I can see that I must have read it correctly actually when I did the grading, because my grading is is around a C.
Yeah. I think that that's probably reflective of what I'm gonna be. I'm a little low on this on general, but I do think with enough Valiant triggers, specifically in the Valiant deck, this could be actively good. Being able to trigger something to take out the best blocker seems to be a valuable thing to do for that deck. A lot of the time, yeah, sure, you want to pump your creatures with the Valiant triggers, and a lot of stuff does that. But if you can engineer it to trigger this, I don't know. Let's take an example that's never gonna happen, but it's magically Christmas. You play this at the end of their turn on turn 5, and then immediately after that you flash in the Feather of Flight on it to tap one of their creatures down after they thought they were stable on the board and had attacked maybe with one of their big dudes. Then on your turn you target this with one of your activate to target abilities or an enter the battlefield effect or whatever you have, and then you tap down another, and then just alpha swing with all of your stuff. That should be able to get in not alpha attack, but whatever you can get in. That should be able to lock them down a lot. So I'd let it get up to like a C+, I think, in that deck. But that also averages out to C as you're giving it. So.
And just, I mean, have that one with the half-stripe host and a lot of bunnies, right? Then you can basically tap down your opponent's team almost, right?
Oh, because you can. No, you can't, because it's the first time each turn.
Oh, is it only the first time?
Valiant is not that. You're thinking of heroic. I think that had me confused a lot of times early on as well. That you could do this, specifically with this card. I when I first read it, I thought, oh, that's gonna be awesome. I'm just gonna trigger this like a million times, tap down the entire opponent's team, and oh, never mind.
No, I see that.
Yeah.
So again, a C. Let's stick with that.
Yeah. Strike Force is the next one. 2 and a white for a creature, Bird Knight. A 1/3 flyer with double strike and vigilance.
It's a hard card to rate, actually. It's because double strike, I immediately sort of jumped to how much equipment is out there, and it's not that equipment heavy of a set. And the only sort of, as far as I could see, the big heavy equipment, and this is almost literally heavy equipment. The one that gives
the Starblade,
actually makes it lose flying, and that's actually a lot of the appeal of building your own double strike flyer on this one. So I think it's a hard card to grade, but that said, it doesn't need that much to be good. I mean, it's flying, it's vigilance, it's we can imagine it a better 2/3 for 3 flying vigilance, which is a quite nice card. And then you have the upside that, oh man, if you get to pump this card, things can get out of control pretty quickly. So all that said, I am at a solid C+ with this one.
Slightly higher, once again. I think we are talking into the optimist slash pessimist again. I really like the double strike. There's some counters floating around in green. I think this is worse in like slightly worse in white-black than in the 3 other white archetypes, because Valiant can target this with all the weird stuff and get it up there if you have this out there. Maybe it's not Valiant, but targeting this with a cupboard trick is still going to be awesome. Birds care about the flying parts. I'd be happy to play this with any of the go white pump effects as well. Black white less so, but I think I have it at a B- technically, just like across the board. I really like the double strike.
I could see it. I could see it if you could get enough support, if you can get away a few ways to get a counter on it.
Yeah, I think counters is more relevant than whatever equipment in this set specifically. But yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupt you.
No, it's fine. That was about it. If you can get enough counters, then I could get behind. In the right deck, I could see it going up to B- definitely.
Check. Thistledown Players is 2 and a white for a creature, Mouse Bard, 3/3. Whenever Thistledown Players attacks, untap target non-land permanent. Boom, straight.
So this compares quite nicely with the other 3/3 that did something. The half-stride host. In that a 3/3 for 3, I kind of like. I'm almost always going to play that card, but the ability really isn't that much. I mean, it's unless you have something that has a very powerful tap effect or something like that. That is basically just giving one of your creatures vigilance in a sense, and you only do it when it attacks. So
if you imagine Valiant wasn't in the set, where would you grade this at first?
Yeah, then I think it's still a 3/3 for 3. Then that's a nice flaw to have. So then it would probably be C-, C.
And with Valiant?
C, then it perhaps jumps up to somewhere between C and C+.
Yeah, okay. I don't have anything more to add to that. That's perfect. So it's a repeatable way to trigger Valiant. That's how I look at this card. And then it can attack. That's great.
And it's a 3/3 for 3, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If it had been a 2/2, it would have been unplayable.
Definitely. So yeah, it needed to be a real body, and it is. So yeah, it's good. It's fine. Rapid Response is our next card. 2 and white. Creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. If you control a rapid, scry 2, and then it's an instant. So this is a gold white pump we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and the sad thing is that I think most of the white decks are going to need one of these, but that doesn't make it a great card. I think it comes across as clunky. I think it's too expensive. It doesn't pump enough. The Scry 2 is a nice consolation price, but I would rather have had it be +2/+2 instead. There's going to be times when this wins you the game. There's going to be times when this causes a major blowout. But it is just a bit to the expensive side. So therefore I have it perhaps a D+ outside of going wide, and perhaps a C- in going white decks.
Okay. I have this a lot higher in the going white deck specifically, but I kind of agree outside. I don't want to play this in anything but rapids. I don't think I might play it if I have like a lot of creatures or a couple of token creators or something, maybe in a flyers deck or something. But in the rapids deck, I think you're gonna actively want 1, 2, maybe even 3 copies of this if you're really into it. I think the third one is gonna be
Bit of a stretch.
I'd much rather play like the 2/2 that can pump the team or anything to that effect.
Yeah,
But
something like that. Yeah, I think that's the perfect comparison, right? Wouldn't you rather play a 2/2 for 2 that's always going to do something in your early game and that has an effect that's almost as strong as that one, but repeatable?
I just think there's a very huge difference between 4 mana plus 2 power or 4 mana plus 1 power. I know the other thing does a lot of other stuff, and that's why you don't want to be flooding your deck with these. I might have said 3 before. Maybe 3 is too many. That's probably the case. But hey, it plus 2 to all of my tokens. That seems like it's going to be killing the opponent a lot of the time. Yeah. And I do actually... I think you just need to take this in the green-white go white deck if you want to be playing the better versions of that one. So I think in that deck you need to take these. I don't know if you need to take them highly because it's only that deck that needs to take them, but I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be really necessary for that deck to function correctly.
I think my problem with this one is the bit of the same problem that I have with threaten effects in red, right? It's that there are going to be moments. I mean, most of the time when you play this card, you're going to win the game. But I would like the card to be able to do something also outside the situation where I needed to make my Alpha Swing lethal.
And that is why they threw on, if you control a rabbit, Scry 2. And I think the Scry 2 is actually not nothing. It is the kind of
It's not nothing. I would have preferred a card, but yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Can I choose? Can we have it say that instead? That would be sweet. But no, Scrying 2 does let you set up your next turn, and I think the rabbit deck is often gonna end up in like a Alpha Swing then Alpha Swing again situation. Is what I am imagining when I try and look at how it would work out, and I do think this is gonna be quite fine for that. But yeah, for a great, I think this goes like a C+, and honestly, I know that's not what you should rate a card like this because it's not good, but I think you might want to play it at like a B- level. You really need to include the first one of these. I do believe.
But I actually agree with you on that, but
you just don't like doing it.
I'll still be unhappy playing it.
But your deck needs it, man.
Yeah, but that's the deck's problem. That doesn't make the card good.
Yeah, that might be like a philosophical difference in how we evaluate cards. But if the deck doesn't function without it, it's gonna be one of the better cards.
But the deck can function if you do the. I agree with you that 2/1 is significantly more than 1/1. But I will play the 2/2 for 2 any day in that role instead.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I can't get behind that. I'd play both. But yeah, I think I'm just gonna be more happy with this.
Now you want to play 3 of this card? I would play 5 of the other one.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Can do it. It is also repeatable, right? You can do that the one turn, and then you can do it again. And this one.
And you don't have to. This one has the uncomfortable. You have to commit a whole bunch of dudes because you can only do this once, right? Whereas the other one, you can. There's threat of activation. There's this whole. Yeah. So I just like it a lot more.
It does make sense. It does make sense, unfortunately. So what did I have the one elder at? Let's go back and look. Let's just take... If I can find it anyway here. So I said that could go up to B-. I'm gonna say that this can go do the same then. That's what I have written down as well, so that's fine. I just didn't want to go too ham on, because I do agree with you that the other one is probably the better card, like in a vacuum.
You're never gonna be unhappy about playing that.
Nah, that's true. Star Charter is our next headliner. It's 3 and a 1 for a creature, Bad Cleric. It's a 3/1, it has flying, and at the beginning of your end step, if you gained or lost life this turn, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a card with power 3 or less from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Interesting one. 4 mana, 3/1 flyer.
I think it's a good card. I mean, how bad can it be? 3/1 flyer for 4 is perhaps a bit on the weak side, but it still packs a punch. And then the ability is very powerful.
It can clearly be very bad because it is literally a bad. Sorry. Go on.
But Yeah, I mean, often in white you will have plenty of options to actually hit something, right? So if you have repeatable life game, or I wouldn't be too comfortable about doing only life lost. It seems a bit dangerous. But if you have repeatable life gain, then I can see this almost drawing you a card every turn, and that's great.
I think this is really strong in the bats deck specifically, and then I do not think that I want to be playing it outside of the bats deck.
You don't want to play it?
I don't like this if I am not building around the life gains thing, because just as a 3/1 flyer for 4, it dies easily. Flying is fine, but there's like a ton of reach creatures in this set as well. And honestly, if I can trigger the thing with life gain, I'm gonna be happy, and then I'm gonna play this card. I have it at a B in the bats deck, but only in the bats deck. There's a lot of almost all creatures in this set has like 3 and below, so it hits a lot of stuff. So it's awesome in that deck. But outside of like really building around life gain, I don't want to play a 3/1 flyer for 4 mana. It just seems to.
I can agree. If you absolutely don't have anything that gives you life, then I could see this being a D plus, something like that, right?
Yeah, that's why
But
I had it.
but if
Exactly.
you just have random food tossed around, if you just have 2 or 3 sources of food, I think this jumps up pretty quickly to a solid C.
Yeah.
And then I agree with you that it can be in the B range. It can definitely be a B, or maybe even a B plus in a dedicated life gain deck.
It looks very strong in like a dedicated. Imagine this with one of the you gain life every turn cards.
Yeah.
That just seems broken, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it dies very easily. In my it's I do think, of course, it's like on a scale. If you have just some amount of life gain, this gets better, so it will land in between there somewhere.
But that's not the case with all mechanics, right? Sometimes there's a critical mass thing to it that
Yeah,
you
that's
need
true.
to.
That's true.
And this one doesn't. This one is just you can up its grade by let's say this much for every life gain source you have, right?
I'd agree with
Then
that.
more if it's repeatable than if it's one shot, obviously. But it doesn't need. If I can trigger this once,
then you're happy.
Then I'm happy.
Because look at the top 4 cards of your library. There's going to be a
There's
creature with power 3 less. Yeah.
Yes, and then you got your card back, and a 3/1 flyer isn't nothing. A 3/1 flyer is a respectable threat if your opponent. I mean, this is not a spirits set, right?
Yeah,
you don't have a
that's
bunch
correct.
of 1/1 flyers blocking everything. Okay, there are some reach creatures, even some of them that are small, but I mean, most of the creatures they're gonna block this with are respectable creatures where maybe
They trade them, right?
you can trade with them, or you can throw in a buff spell and make some stuff happen, right? So in that sense, it's a real card. A 3/1 flyer is a pretty decent card. I would probably be happy to pay 3 mana for a 3/1 flyer in this set.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll bump up the floor a bit, because you're probably right that we have a bit of that. But I do have it. It's gonna be really good in bats. I'm gonna be loath to play it outside of bats. I might do it at times. So D plus C minus probably. And it's great at scale, as you said. The next one we have, Wax Wayne Witness. That's gonna be a tongue twister. 3 and a white for a creature, Bat Cleric. It's a 2/4 flying vigilant creature. Whenever you gain or lose life during your turn, Waxwing Witness gets +1/+0 until end of turn.
Yeah, it's a nice card. It's 2/4 flying vigilance for 4. It's pretty much almost gets there on its own. I mean, this is one of those cards. I mean, it doesn't get much out of life gain or life loss, but it doesn't need to either. I have this as a solid card. I mean, you're almost always gonna have some accidental life gain or life loss in your decks. So I have it around a C, outside of the life gain deck, and perhaps a C plus in the life gain deck.
So I'm lower than you on this one across the board. I think it goes up to C in a life gain deck, but that's about it. Vigilance is nice. I might play this as well in a Flyers deck. I don't think I'm going to be slotting in. This is a 4-drop.
The
So
4-drop,
as
it
we
is the
talk about the
problem.
4-drop tax from before, right?
Yeah.
So if I can't trigger this, I'm not going to be happy with a 2/4 flying Vigilance. White doesn't look to be that defensive. We only have white-black as like an actively defensive deck. And I don't think I want this creature in like the Valiant deck. I don't think I want it in the green-white, go white. I might be playing it in Flyers. So I have it
I'm
like
not going to
at
actively
top
want
of
it
C.
either, but it's not embarrassing to play.
No, I have it topped out in of C in the life gain deck, and then maybe C- in the blue one, and D+ in the rest. Something to that effect.
Perhaps.
Yeah. Drift Gloom Coyote. 3 white for a creature elemental coyote. It's a 3/4, and when Drift Gloom Coyote enters, exile target creature an opponent controls until Drift Gloom Coyote, I'm having trouble saying that, leaves the battlefield. If that creature had power 2 or less, put a +1/+1 counter on Drift Gloom Coyote.
Wow, that's pretty powerful text on a 3/4 for 5.
Yep.
I mean, that's talk about a powered up fiend hunter here. I mean,
Also
I
more
love this
expensive
card.
though, right?
Also more expensive. I love paying 5 mana for this. I mean, it's a real card. A 3/4 is a very respectable body. Of course, it comes with the caveat that it's not a 3/4 that you can really let rumble all that much, because then you risk the opponent getting that creature back if it all of a sudden dies. But still, it's a respectable body. It removes something that you want to remove. I could see this as a very nasty curve topper for the aggressive white decks. I could see this as a just clean, good value removal spell for the slower decks. Every white deck is gonna want that.
Yeah.
At least the first copy. So I actually have it as a B+.
This is one of the. There's a couple of cards that I only gave 1 grade because it just seems to be good or the same-ish around across the board in all the decks of the color, and this is one of them. I think this is just a B. B+, I could be talked up to that, I think, but like with the low-ish Fiend Hunter type cards, they're often lower on power and toughness, so you're decently okay with just having them stand around and not do too much once they have eaten something, a lot of the time at least. This one, you are actually going to be tussling in combat with it to get the most out of it, so it's maybe like a bit more likely to get killed in combat and have the creature go back onto the battlefield. It's also a 4/5 if you ate something small, and I think that's a really strong selling point for it. Like, it's not going to be bad that it's bigger, is what I mean.
No, but I was gonna get to that also. I mean, aren't you sort of blaming it for being so big that you can't help yourself for beating around with it?
Yeah.
I mean, it is optional.
No, I do. I do really want. I want to be tussling with this card. If I get it down there, it would be silly to have a 4/5 standing around, right? Doing nothing. And I do like the fact, also the flavor of it getting bigger if it eats something small. I think that's really cute. It's a little weird that they also get the small thing back then. It could have been fun if it eats a creature with power 2 or less, it doesn't get back or something like that. That would fit the flavor of it, in my opinion. But yeah, it's a really good card. Let's end it at that. And then you're gonna help me with the pronunciation of this word because I decided so. How do you say the first word there?
Pileated Provisioner.
Nice. Pileated Provisioner, 4 and a white for a 3/4 flyer. It's a creature, bird scout. And when Pileated Provisioner enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control without flying.
Yeah. This is a pretty bread and butter card. Pretty much a bread and butter card, right? I mean, it's there was a day and age not that long ago when this was the going rate for a 3/4 flyer that was 5 mana. There's been some inflation since then, so I think we're pretty much right on curve here. It's a decent amount of stats for what you pay. I think it's a decent top end for aggressive white decks.
Hmm?
You can even get to attack with your counter right away, so that it has a lot of good stuff going for it. It's a bird for your white-blue decks and stuff like that. So I have this as a C plus,
Yeah. I
a C or a C plus.
I think I had it as a C plus originally, and then I toned it down a bit because it only. I'm a little loath on the fact. I'm a little low on the fact that it only targets creatures without flying.
Yeah.
That annoys me a bit, if it makes
Especially
sense.
in the blue-white deck, right?
Yeah, but that's sort of the blue-white decks thing. A lot of the creatures target the ground ones. But yeah, it's just compared to. I think we had this exact card with just put in a +1/+1 counter on anything. That was quite decent. I don't know if it was OTJ or. Yeah, it probably was. And I have it at C. So I had it at C plus originally. I just toned it down a bit for that. It's still gonna be fine.
I
It's
did
gonna
the same thing, right?
exactly. Yeah, while you were talking.
Yeah.
It works well with Valiant, of course, and I also think that the counter stuff is gonna be quite sweet. So good.
Excellent.
That was white.
Yep.
I think we're gonna take a very short break, and then we'll see getting into the next stuff. If you enjoyed this deep dive into white, I'm happy to inform you that we already have a lot of the other ones recorded. We just need to get them edited and ready. It's a little late, but we are not in the situation where we are able to get into a pre-release or anything like that, unfortunately. So thank you for joining, if you have been. I've been Chandran. You've most definitely been awesome. Don't forget to do the YouTube stuff, and bye-bye.